Welcome. This is Matthew Bronson, and you are listening to Conversations with Matthew Bronson on KUPR Radio, Placitas, New Mexico. And today we're having a conversation with Phil Carter, the Wildlife Campaign Manager of the Animal Protection of New Mexico organization. So welcome to Conversation.
Thank you for having me on, Matthew.
So what is the issue that we're here discussing?
Well, on August 3rd, the New Mexico Game and Fish Department, which oversees wildlife management and hunting and fishing across the state, issued its final proposals for the bear and cougar rule, which is being reviewed for the first time since 2011 this year. Among the proposals they're calling for are what we would consider very extreme increases in mortality to cougar, also known as mountain lion. The department is proposing to allow for trapping of cougar, that's legal traps and snares, on all 9 million acres of state trust land, which is administered by the State Land Office. They are also calling to remove a requirement for landowners to receive a permit to trap cougar on their lands, and also calling for increased bag limits, basically the amount of cougars that can be hunted on a number of areas around the state. Basically trying to increase the overall mortality of mountain lion. However, the department has yet to issue any new data on populations of mountain lion and has indicated that they will not have any new data on populations for the foreseeable future.
And this rule will not only affect mountain lion, but bear also.
Correct. Yep, the bear and cougar rule is what's currently being reviewed, and the State Game Commission, which is a body appointed by the governor, is set to issue a final vote on whether to accept or reject these proposals for cougar and bear at their meeting in Santa Fe on August 27th.
Okay, let me just ask a couple of questions to clarify it for me, and hopefully other people will have the same questions. I'm not a big, large animal aficionado. I know that there are all kinds of different species of fish. Mm-hmm. Is when we talk about cougar, is there just kind of like one type of cougar? Mm-hmm. Okay, but bear, I know enough to know that there's a whole bunch of different kind of bears.
Correct.
This covers all bears.
Only black bear exist in New Mexico, so the bear and cougar rule for the state of New Mexico really only applies to black bear. That is, of course, correct. There's grizzlies and polar bears and Kodiak Island bears, but really, when I'm referring to bear, it's purely about black bear in our state.
And is the rule, does it specify black bear? I mean, what if a grizzly happened to wander in? Would they be covered by this?
Not necessarily. The rule is specific to black bear. Again, you almost never see them further south than about middle part of Colorado. And so, yes, for all intents and purposes, this does refer to black bear and cougar, also known as mountain lion and puma.
Okay, well, see, then that's interesting. Mountain lion, puma, and cougar. Same thing.
Same thing. Out east they call them catamounts, but yes, all the same animal. They're a large cat species native to the American West and that stretch all the way down into South America. And they are, at this point, the largest cat species in New Mexico.
And when you say increase mortality, we're talking about killing them.
Correct.
Okay. And you also mentioned in your summary of the issue to remove restrictions on landowners. So that means that if I have a small piece or a large piece of undeveloped land or my residence, the rule would remove any restrictions on me killing the cats or the bears.
Correct. Currently, a landowner can contact the Game and Fish Department and ask for a permit to trap a problem cougar. It's not a difficult process, but certain elements want to remove the requirement to trap cougar whatsoever, basically rendering the animals a varmint species like coyote for the sake of landowners. So we find this a a very wrong approach to wildlife management, and it also removes a vital tool of the Game and Fish Department to monitor the instances of problem cougar and be able to address them, basically by turning it over to their fate at the hands of a landowner who may decide to set a cruel trap or snare. It's really removing all protections for this vital species on private land.
And when you say a problem or nuisance animal, do they have to meet certain requirements? Like, I don't know, they're taking the mail out of my mailbox, or I'm being facetious, but
it's at the discretion of the Game and Fish Department biologists, and we believe it should remain so. These animals are vital, and they're also a naturally rare species. They don't come in large numbers, and so the department really needs to have this tool at their disposal to monitor the situation. And we don't disagree if there is a problem or nuisance animal that is endangering the safety of livestock or property or even human life, as extremely rare as that occurs, then the state does need to have the ability to do something about the particular animal, either through relocation or, in extreme cases, mortality.
Again, killing them.
Yeah, exactly.
I like to call it what it is. Now, a nuisance animal, I'm just going to kind of suspect that they may become a nuisance as a result of something that the resident does. Like if I store my animal food in an outside area, a cougar or any kind of wildlife, raccoons, coyotes, rabbits, whatever we have, so it's kind of like my fault. So as residents we're here because we like it here, and part of the appeal is the presence of these animals. So we have, I guess I'm kind of answering my own question, but often we're creating the own problem. And so how much of your initiative on this rule is educating the public to not make a good animal a nuisance animal?
Yeah, Animal Protection in New Mexico has a long-standing program about coexisting with wildlife so that animals aren't ultimately put in danger or persecuted based on public safety concerns. There's a number of really easy things landowners can do to really remove attractants, basically things that are attracting various types of animals, including cleaning barbecue grills, stowing trash in a shed or other domicile, a number of other things that can be found on our website, which is apnm.org. In the case of mountain lions, they would come into habitated areas habitated by humans because of a particular prey species that they're trying to hunt. It's very unlikely that humans could directly attract a mountain lion through their own activities, but through attracting other species, there is, of course, a risk of cougars coming into habitated areas.
Well, certainly, if you're attracting animals who are further down the food chain.
Exactly.
And I guess that's just how nature works. But the issue that is coming up, the vote on this rule, when is the vote?
The vote is on August 27th. It will be at Santa Fe Community College in Santa Fe in the Jemez room. The meeting of the Game Commission begins at 9 a.m. and I believe the bear and cougar rule vote is first on the agenda.
And is this open to the public?
It is open to the public. We very much encourage anybody who's interested in the issue to come out. Animal Protection in New Mexico will be out there helping to organize people who are opposed to these really extreme proposals being recommended by the Game and Fish Department that the Game Commission is set to vote on the 27th.
Okay, and as succinctly as possible, why is the Animal Protection of New Mexico against this proposed rule change?
Well, first and foremost, animal protection in New Mexico is staunchly opposed to any increase in opportunities for setting traps and snares on landscapes. The devices are cruel, they're extremely traumatic to animals for a number of reasons, and they also pose a public safety risk from dogs, cats, and even people getting caught in these devices that are indiscriminate by their very nature. They'll catch anything.
But not to be glib, I mean, death is traumatic.
Death is traumatic, but it's a very traumatic form of death. The animal can die from starvation because they can't move. They can die from exposure if it's cold. They're predated by other animals because they're not able to get away. Blood loss and tearing of limbs is also a very real issue. The old cliche about the coyote chewing his foot off to get away is very real. Animals will do that because they're put in a place of peril and fright.
Right. All right. So your organization, as well as other people who are like-minded, are opposed to this because it's cruel.
It's cruel.
Is it necessary? Do we need to thin the herd, as it were?
Outside of biological interests, basically capturing animals for the purpose of study, we see trapping as a completely unnecessary activity. It's been banned in many states, including California, Arizona, and Colorado. It's been banned by the European Union. The American Veterinary Medical Association believes that it is a cruel practice, and it is just utterly unnecessary for wildlife management or disease control. In our state, it's purely done to enrich the pockets of a very few through sale of pelts.
And from a wildlife management perspective, do we have too many bear and too many cougar so that we do need to reduce the number, but perhaps a different manner?
Well, cougar are an elusive species. I mean, you're lucky if you ever see one during your lifetime. I've never seen one, and I'm a pretty avid outdoor recreationist. So
I might consider myself lucky if I don't see one, unless it's in the zoo.
Well, they are naturally afraid of humans, and so it's, and cougar deaths.
And vice versa.
Deaths from cougars are extremely rare. It's only about a dozen or so since the colonization of America, and so. The only way to really make population assumptions on cougar is to analyze habitat. Here in New Mexico, from 1985 to 1995, a landmark study was conducted by the Hornacher Institute to really gauge what is suitable cougar habitat and pull population estimates of the animals from that. It's considered a model of wildlife population survey, and I believe almost every other Western state uses it as far as their own research goes in assuming population. The thing about it, though, is this study that was produced with $1 million of taxpayer money here in New Mexico has pretty much been swept under the rug ever since it was published in the attempt to kill more animals and sell more hunting licenses to kill these cougar than is prescribed by the population assumptions of this study. Currently, hunters can legally kill up to 749 cougars per year. The thing is, though, hunters never get over about 300 in any given year. We're never getting over about 40% of the total hunting quotas every year. This has led people in the Department of Game and Fish to employ what I would consider very circular logic, is that, well, we're not killing enough cougar, so let's increase the ability to kill cougar through the use of traps and through the increase of bag limits for hunters. This, to me, seems to be putting the cart before the horse, jumping to conclusions without the data to back it up. And the department has not been able to produce a shred of data to justify these increases in cougar hunting and trapping.
So there's not a overpopulation of cougar like in some parts of the country. The deer population needs to be reduced. That's not true of the New Mexico cougar or bear.
Not that anybody can ever prove. Again, it's very hard to gauge the actual numbers of these species, but just last year, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service declared the eastern cougar extinct, and so that says to me that there is not so much an overpopulation as a severe underpopulation if an entire species in half the country can go extinct.
And as you said, in your lifetime as an outdoor person, you've never seen one.
Never have seen one. Parents up in Colorado have seen a couple, but they live out in the middle of nowhere, and so it's very rare to see these species.
And if you travel at all, you're going to see deer,
Of course.
on the side of the road, alive, dead, whatever, hanging in someone's backyard that they've hunted. So, yeah, I see your point that at least on the surface, it seems illogical that we need to increase the limits. But you said there was a financial component to this through the sale of increased cougar hunting licenses. Is that really a significant revenue item for the state?
No. Again, only about 300 cougar are killed annually. The current bag limits are 2. And so if you extract that, you can see about 150 people successfully killing a cougar every year.
But they could sell 1 million licenses.
They certainly could sell 1 million licenses. It's something that the Department of Game and Fish has always been very keen on doing. The issue at stake is that the Department of Game and Fish is also tasked with wildlife management and conservation in our state. No other agency is doing that. And so to essentially recklessly endanger an entire population of animals purely to sell cougar licenses is not accepted wildlife management.
Certainly, but the question is, is there a motivation to sell more licenses because that represents a lot of additional revenue? Not that it would increase the kill rate or the bag limit or whatever, but is the sale of those licenses a budget item? Or is it kind of, it just doesn't really matter?
I would consider it pretty irrelevant in the overall revenue coming in from the sale of hunting and fishing licenses. Hunting of deer and turkey and other species far outstrips the incidence of hunting of lions. It's a very specialized form of hunting. It's very difficult too. And so it isn't a major component of the overall sportsman community. Even hunting in of itself is much less common than fishing.
Okay.
And it's angling is a much higher source of revenue for the state than any hunting enterprises, and much more so than trapping, which only around 2,000 trapping licenses are sold every year in our state.
And for the outdoor challenge, angling is fishing.
Angling is fishing.
Okay.
Correct, yeah.
We all live out here, but not everybody is sports literate or gaming literate. All right, so let me see if I can kind of summarize what you've educated me on here today. The issue is that there is a rule before the state to change the way the killing of bear and cougar is handled. They want to increase the limit that are allowed. They, through licenses or through no governance at all on private property, and that your position or the Animal Protection of New Mexico, as well as like-minded organizations, are saying that there is no data to support overpopulation of these animals, so we need to reduce the population. And if for some reason they could demonstrate that we do need to reduce the population, it wouldn't be through these cruel methods.
Yeah, that's overall correct. I would further clarify that the lack of data not only can't prove an overpopulation of cougar in our state, there is no data to show that we're not already hammering this species to extinction. Again, hunters are never able to get more than about 40% of the annual quotas in a given year. So this says to me, and I think anybody who understands the precautionary principle, that we really need to take a hard look at, are our current quotas too high, and are we taking too many more cougar than their population can currently sustain? And the arbitrariness of just saying that we need to kill more because we're not killing enough, we see that as very reckless and dangerous wildlife management, and not something that a scientifically minded agency would be proposing. And for this reason, Animal Protection of New Mexico opposes any attempts to increase the bag limits on cougars, basically how many cougars a hunter can kill in a given season, as well as increasing opportunities to cruelly trap these animals.
And a phrase that I happen to like a lot seems to apply here, where the position of the state might be considered arbitrary and capricious.
We would certainly characterize it as such.
So, when is the vote again?
August 27th in Santa Fe.
And if people want to support your position, what do they do?
Well, we just launched a new website. That's stopcougartrapping.org. It also works with .com. That's stopcougartrapping.org. You can find out all manner of ways to get involved. You can find our petition. We will be submitting this to the governor and the Game Commission sometime in advance of the vote. You can also find other ways to get involved, including volunteering to petition gather, writing letters to their newspaper, and writing to Governor Martinez and the Game Commission to oppose these dangerous proposals.
And Stop Cougar Hunting?
Stop Cougar Trapping.
StopCougarTrapping.com and .net.
.org.
All right, I've got this all messed up.
It's okay.
StopCougarTrapping.org or .com.
Or .com.
Would also cover the bear issue.
Yes, certainly, we're very concerned about attempts to increase bear hunting. The thing is, the department has issued a study that it's claiming that is justifying increasing of bear hunting. It's certainly something that needs to be reviewed and peer reviewed, which the Department of Game and Fish is not required under state law to do, use peer-reviewed data, but they at least have produced some science to back up what they're saying. We're not saying we agree with increases of bear hunting, but at least there's some sort of attempt to justify the department's actions on the part of the bear hunting. Certainly, we encourage people to learn more about bear hunting. Placetans would be interested in learning more about a group called Sandia Mountain Bear Watch. That's also their website, sandiamountainbearwatch.org, that works heavily on black bear issues. They're a very valued colleagues of ours.
And this upcoming vote, is this a straight up or down vote? It either passes or doesn't pass, and then that's it till it's brought up again? Or if for some reason it does pass, is there any recourse?
Well, certainly the Game and Fish Department and Game Commission serve at the pleasure of the governor, and so my hope is that Governor Martinez will encourage them to take a long, hard look, the Game Commission I'm talking about, to take a long, hard look at this, and future administrations and game commissions will also really approach this from a very much more pragmatic and scientifically minded position than the department seems to be operating from these days.
So regardless of how the vote goes, does it then need the governor's approval?
No, the Game Commission has authority over wildlife management, so they will issue the final vote on this, and if they accept it, it is now the official bear and cougar rule of the state of New Mexico.
Okay, but it's not necessarily over for either side after the vote. Continued lobbying and influencing or education can still go on.
Absolutely. Animal Protection in New Mexico has worked on the cougar issue for decades now. We will continue to promote safety through our Cougar Smart program to help families and children stay safe when they're recreating in mountain lion country. And we will continue to work with the Department of Game and Fish, biologists, and other land management agencies for much more humane and scientifically justified methods of managing the species.
Fantastic. Well, we have been having a conversation with Phil Carter, the Wildlife Campaign Manager of the Animal Protection of New Mexico organization. And we're talking about the upcoming vote on changing the rule governing the trapping and killing of cougars and bears in our state. And for more information, Phil, let's give out a couple of websites again.
Sure. The website for the Cougar campaign is stopcougartrapping.org. And you can also find APNM on the website. That's apnm.org.
Fantastic. And if you forget all of that, you can always go to kupr.org and send us a message, and we will relay it to the appropriate people. As with anything in the way we live our lives, especially here in New Mexico, we embrace the wildlife, and we need to get involved. Let your voice be known by however method you choose, but definitely do something. And again, thank you for spending time here with Conversation with Matthew Bronson.
Thanks very much.
KUPR FM Placitas, New Mexico. Thank you, Phil.
Thanks. Thank you very much for having me on.